Let's talk about denaturalization cases again because we got a big update from the Department of Justice last week regarding the ongoing denaturalization efforts by the government. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over this recent update. I'm going to share with you my thoughts and general comments and important considerations when considering all these ongoing denaturalization efforts by the government. I know this is a topic that so many of you reached out to me about. Many of you have commented on my videos, so I know it's something that's on many of your minds. So my goal with this video is to clear up, I think, the ongoing confusion and also a whole lot of misinformation that I'm seeing online. And hopefully you'll find this video helpful by the end when you've watched it. First and foremost, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adrian Pandev. I'm an attorney who helps foreign nationals navigate the U.S. legal system. Just as background, this is one of several videos on denaturalization that I have recorded. So, if this is the first video you're watching on this topic from me, make sure to check out the other ones in which I go over the rules and how they're applied and various considerations, because in this video I'm only going to cover the current updates and the information that we got. If you like the content and like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And that way you're going to get updates whenever I upload any new videos. Now, that being said, let's jump right into this March 26 DOJ update that was released. So, in last week's announcement, the Attorney General stated that U.S. citizenship is a sacred privilege, not a cheap status that can be obtained dishonestly, and she reiterated the ongoing efforts by the government to denaturalize those who have obtained their citizenship through fraud or other dishonest means. In addition to this, the press release highlighted two recent denaturalization cases in which the government successfully denaturalized someone, and a recent complaint in South Florida that was filed to denaturalize another individual. Now, I will discuss these cases in a little bit because I think there's some important items to note about the specific cases that the government has been releasing information on. But first, what I want to talk about is the numbers. So, as we discussed on previous video, there's a USCIS memo where the director of USCIS directs field offices to refer 100 to 200 cases a month to the DOJ for potential denaturalization. And understandably, so many people reached out to me, and they're worried about this because it's an enormous number. But what's interesting is with these press releases and all the information that was provided by the DOJ, it seems from all the data that in 2025 the DOJ filed 13 denaturalization cases and were successful in 8. And then this year in 2026, they've filed about a handful more. So altogether, since the beginning of this administration, no matter this memo and the supposed uptick in denaturalization cases, the total number of cases that have been brought is so far not significantly higher than the average, which is about 16 cases a year. So if we're looking at the 16-case average approximately per year in 2025, actually the government brought fewer than the average cases. And to confirm again, only 8 out of those 13 cases were actually successful. So the bottom line is, like I mentioned in previous videos, the government's ability to denaturalize hundreds of people a month or even hundreds of people a year is limited. It's a very serious process. It involves a lot of work. These cases are brought to and filed in federal court. So there's also a judicial component that takes time, and it's genuinely a lot of effort by the underlying agencies and then the Department of Justice that brings these cases. So far, the data that the government is providing confirms that as a whole, although these statements claim that there is an uptick in denaturalization reviews and enforcement, so far the filings themselves and the amount of cases brought doesn't seem to indicate that there's an enormous, massive increase. Now, what could be happening in the background is that a lot more cases are reviewed for denaturalization. That's possible. There's no publicly available data on that. But as of right now, the announcements and everything that was, previously leaked and provided to the public that so many were worried about seems to not be playing out in real life because the number of cases brought simply is not higher than before, or even if it's slightly higher, it's definitely not substantially higher. The other part of the announcement that I want to focus on are the cases themselves, because I think it confirms something I've been saying for a long time in these videos. So Let's look at the press release from last week, right? The first case, successful denaturalization, involved someone who was convicted of smuggling firearm parts. And the second case involved someone who was convicted of committing Medicare fraud for $6 million. So both of those I would by no means consider minor offenses that were undisclosed at the time of denaturalization. These are very, very serious crimes. Some of the other cases on which the government has released information involve child sex offenders, child molesters, also a bigger conspiracy to involve military personnel in fraudulent marriages. So, not just a single fraudulent marriage, but a wider, bigger conspiracy to involve service members in this fraud. So the bottom line here is that all of these crimes for all of these cases are serious crimes. So many people in the comments, so many people who contacted me were worried about not disclosing, say, a speeding ticket on their naturalization application. And what I've been trying to explain is that only if something was material, so it would have changed the outcome of that immigration application, can it potentially lead to denaturalization. And on top of that, the government actually has to agree to file these lawsuits. And as I've been explaining, there's so many people who've actually committed serious crimes who became naturalized citizens because they lied on those applications. It is much more likely that the government's going to go after the serious offenders. Like in the cases I just went over, than something minor like traffic tickets or traffic incidents or something similar. And proof of this is the most recent complaint that the government filed, which they announced in last week's press release. So in that case, the individual became a U.S. citizen by claiming to be living in a marital union with a U.S. citizen spouse. But it turns out that they had separated from the U.S. citizen spouse many years before. But what's interesting is that the way this case came up on the government's radar and how it got to denaturalization is that the individual was under investigation for trafficking counterfeit goods. So it didn't start out by just randomly opening a denaturalization case and looking into people's marriages. There was an investigation about the trafficking of counterfeit goods. So again, a serious crime. And as a part of that, they discovered this naturalization and passport application, etc. And as part of that criminal investigation and the charges, and then the whole criminal process, they were able to discover that the individual may have lied about their relationship on that naturalization application, that they were not, in fact, living with a U.S. citizen. So what I'm trying to say with all of this, and the important takeaway here, is that so far there's no extreme spike in denaturalization cases brought by the government. In fact, the numbers are right around average. You could argue last year was technically slightly below average. If you look at the first quarter of this year combined with that, maybe we're slightly above average, but there's definitely no extreme spike in denaturalization cases being filed by the government. And the second important takeaway is that the cases that the government is bringing involve serious crimes that were not disclosed on the naturalization and potentially other immigration applications. And even the ones that were not necessarily just crimes, but also immigration-related offenses, those were also very serious. And the reason I'm recording this video and the reason I'm mentioning this is because I got so many comments on those first videos. And I had so many people reach out to me worried about truly minor things like speeding tickets and similar items. And what I've been trying to explain, and the reason I'm recording these videos, is to ease that anxiety that I know so many people out there are feeling for truly minor offenses that may have gone undisclosed or minor violations that may have gone undisclosed. The reality of this process is, and the way the framework operates, and if you are questioning how that all works, go back to my first video where I explained all of this. What matters are material misrepresentations or material, offenses, crimes, etc. That would have barred someone from becoming a U.S. citizen. If it's something minor or immaterial that would have never prevented someone from becoming a U.S. citizen, then they can't be denaturalized, right? And keep in mind, there's such a massive pool of individuals who have committed crimes, who lied about it, and who became U.S. citizens afterwards, that the government doesn't have to go after the small minor violations. There's plenty of people who've committed the big, call it bad crimes, who should have never become U.S. citizens but became U.S. citizens. Now, obviously, I am not the government, and I can't tell you what's happening in the background and how many cases are being reviewed and how much of that 100 to 200 case quota or target that was placed on field offices is actually being adhered to. But what I can say is that the data as it stands today and the information that we have as it is today seems to indicate that the government is still denaturalizing people who've committed serious crimes in light about it, and the number of denaturalization complaints being filed are not significantly more than they have been in the past. I'm going to do my very best to keep you all updated, and, if things change, I'll record another video and tell you that things have changed. But as of right now, I think the information that we're receiving and the information that's out there seems to prove that the process is working sort of very similarly to how it worked before. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you would like to receive updates and be notified when I record more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.